I mean, especially for all of those that have already seen it. Some people have commented on this already when they've seen me actually do it.
I'm scared. Do I like
No. Just...
inhale it and blow it out? Or
No.
what am I doing?
No. It's not like that.
Because this is one big ass cone piece.
See, the thing is, yeah, it's pretty big actually.
It's a big ass cone piece.
But see, it's very luxurious. Like, it's got a really nice look to it in comparison to like a Gatorade bottle.
I know, you kind of feel like you're sitting in the Bahamas with no dramas and just about to sip on your natural little coconut cocktail.
Little coconut.
My little cocktail.
Little coconut.
My weird cocktail.
I forgot it. You don't have to.
Will I be safe to drive?
Yeah, you'll be safe to drive.
You sure? I'm not going to drive to freaking Teddy Mountain.
Don't move the bombilla. Like, don't touch it.
Okay.
Just drink it as it is, yeah. And just drink it all the way until you feel that last hit, and then bam, and you're in.
That's what he said.
How about that? And then you feel it towards the end, yeah, and then there.
That's the noise you were telling me to look out for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You feel, yeah, that's the one. That's the noise.
Kind of like finishing a Slurpee.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to the little bits.
Yep.
But you annoy everyone, and you still keep trying to get to the little bits. Everyone's like, you are disgusting.
Yeah.
Whatever, as if you haven't done that before.
I've done it before many times. Trust me. All right.
Alrighty, and welcome to the Let's Talk Loco show with our main host, Michelio.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. And you know what, Mish? It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here today, to be honest.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, doll.
Yeah.
So only time and excuse I had to come and hang out with you.
Yeah,
I was so bloody busy, and here we are.
You're busy with your daughter, and you're like, daughter, look, I love you, bro, but like, I gotta see.
And Nigga needs a break.
Yeah. Well, no, it's an absolute pleasure having you on here today, and
Thanks,
I'm so glad that you found the time and you found the energy also to come here today. I know it was a little bit difficult for you in the morning, but
what energy? What fucking energy? When you're a parent, it's just like, I don't know where the energy comes from, but it comes from somewhere.
Well, it's fascinating to hear that you have all that energy as well at the same time. Only just.
Hanging on by a thread. Anyway. Anyways, that's another story.
For those who haven't seen Mischa before, because you probably haven't, Mischa is a very close family friend of mine. In fact, she's one of the first people I've ever met. And she now has actually been making a business in the background, and her business is starting to gain some traction now. And the name of her business is actually called A Temp. A Temp.
Rent a very long ass journey. Headaches and stress and drama. A Temp. Here we are. Fucking hell. Rent high blood pressure, more like it, but hey, that's another story.
That's another story.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah. So, how many years has it been now that you've been running? They've been the A Temp.
Well, like officially running it, it's probably been about 2 years. I had a lot of hurdles along the way, a lot of hurdles. So I did anticipate to start it about 6 years ago when I left being a practice manager to go on my little dreamy venture. Took that leap of faith. And it's been about 6 years that I've been working on it. Like, I thought of the idea when I was like 21. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell the story of how I thought of the idea, but great ideas do happen in lounge rooms, and that was one of mine.
What was your story?
Do you really want to know? Sorry in advance, everyone.
No. There's worse things. There's worse things. Explain to me the story.
It was kind of like one of those situations where, we all have our young and dumb moments and experimenting and whatever. And I was at my friend's house in Perth. So I moved back to Perth to kind of get away from a toxic relationship when I was 22.
Yep.
And so I ran away, had to run away from that guy. But anyway, that's another story. And and then I met this friend because I was dealing with a lot of emotional and mental things at the time, who became my how can I say it, recreational doctor, let's put it that way. And I was at his house and Uber, and I'm like, what's Uber? Because Uber was still new to Perth, because Perth is really backwards with just everything.
Yeah, so you're living in Perth?
Yeah, so I was living in Perth. I think Perth's picking up now, but back then it was, always the last of everything. And and then someone said to me, why don't you get an Uber? And then I was like, what's Uber? And he explained it to us. And then I was like, yeah, but then I've got to come back in the morning and get my car. And I'm like, imagine if there was Uber for jobs. Like that would have been a lot more ideal in that situation kind of thing, where you can connect with people in your radius to pick up work rather than, sort of waiting for a recruitment agency sort of thing. So that's how I kind of thought of the idea of Rent a Temp. So it's app-based. You can download it on Android and iOS.
Google Play.
Yeah, Google Play.
Google Play
Google Play and App Store.
Yeah.
I should know better, but yes, that's the one.
Okay.
And they're like the two platforms. Yeah, you can download it from, but it basically connects job seekers and business owners that want to get a job done temporarily, within their local radius. So similar concept to Uber, but for job seekers instead.
For job seekers,
and that's how it started in the lounge room. A bit freaking out about what I was going to do. I ended up driving home. It was a very paranoid drive home, but I made it. And then I just thought of the idea, and then from there I started with my phone, outlining, my phone, and then drawing up the little templates because I came from a dental background, as you know, so all I knew was teeth. I knew other industries, but I didn't know.
You were dental.
I was a dental nurse at the time.
How long were you in dental for?
So what happened? I've been in dental for 10 years. So now I'm kind of externally working at a dental because we provide staff for the dental industry. But at that time, so I was working as a contractor. So because I came out of a pretty turbulent relationship, but when you're young and you're still in love with the person, because toxic relationships are just all the green flags you want when you're younger. So that was pretty much me. So I always had this like hope of coming back to Sydney and rekindling the relationship. So I didn't want to commit to anyone. So I was always a bit of a commitment phobe. And I think that goes back to growing up and living in so many different environments. Being committed to something was really daunting for me. So that's where my niche in Perth of being employed was working as a contractor. So, and I would sit there and wait every Friday or Wednesday for them to send me a message. Hey, can you work here and here? And then that's kind of what led me to the idea as well. And I built quite a network for myself, and I was one that was getting requested for all the jobs. And then I thought, hey, I'm the value of this, and maybe I should start my own little venture because it's, me that these people are asking for. And but it doesn't always happen that way in business sometimes, like especially with what I've done, because there's so many different aspects that can exhaust you where you kind of want to just be behind the scenes, because you're like an octopus. You just got your hands everywhere. And that's what it's like being a business owner. So then from there, I kind of just, more so became building the reputation based on my fundamentals as a person kind of thing. So, yeah.
So you were out there, you're working as a dental nurse or in dental as well. And you're working for a recruitment company, you were saying?
Yeah, I was working for a recruitment company.
You got also the idea from this that you're saying that you were doing that job, and then you were like, okay, you were thinking, how could I make this more accessible for people as well?
Yeah, and simplify the experience. Yeah, because everything's, as everyone knows, is moving to artificial intelligence and technology. And back then I was the conspiracy theorist who was going on about that. But hey, who's the conspiracy theorist now, guys? But anyway, so
it all comes out in the end.
Exactly. So, and that's where it led me to, I was like, hold on, there's a market here for technology and merging contractors and people that wanted to be their own boss, because obviously I knew at the time as well that, as technology and artificial intelligence and robotics would evolve, there would be a niche in the market for job shortages as well, which everyone's seeing at the moment. Yep. Where big companies utilize technology, they utilize robotics or automated systems to remove the manual handling side of things to reduce overheads and increase revenue. So, and that's where my head was at as well in terms of business and getting into technology. I was like, okay, well, if I streamline this, one, it makes things easier for people, but two, it kind of reduces my overheads by utilizing technology instead. So, and that is where the cookie was born.
That's where it was made.
That's it. Yeah.
That's actually pretty.
Golden cookie.
It's pretty crazy because it seems like you wanted to get ahead of what was actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
Because you understood that there were all these things that were happening around, and you were like, okay, how can I also be just a little bit ahead of them? How can I get ahead of everyone else with the idea that's coming forward?
Exactly. And I think all the trials and tribulations that I had on my journey, I could have done things smarter. I really could have, but I look at everything as a blessing and a learning curve, and things that I didn't know then, I know now. And, and I'm growing off my little failures. I think I could have probably done things a bit differently because it was just, don't make sense.
No.
Sorry.
You're supposed to not touch it. Anyway, come on.
Sorry. So I think it was, it was pretty much that. So, thanks, Joel. It's, very satisfying. Extremely satisfying. I recommend this. This is nice. I'm just like a bit paranoid. I'm like, is this in my teeth? Am I going to look at myself in this video and zoom in on all my imperfections and find little grainy bits in my interproximal spaces? By the way, interproximal spaces are the spaces in between your teeth.
What does that mean? Yeah, I was like, what does that even mean?
Interproximal, it's in between your teeth. So we use this saying in dentistry that if you don't floss your teeth, it's like having a shower and not wiping in between your arse, because that's where all the gunk hangs out, in between your teeth. So that's why flossing's such a big thing.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say that. Yeah.
I can go more in depth about it, but that's if any of you guys have time to listen. That boring.
I mean, everyone's just like, fuck it, man, I've got my electric toothbrush. I'm just going to get my Colgate, get my electric toothbrush and just pump it.
Yeah, it's just a stereotype, but apparently electric toothbrushes are good. I don't know what deals these dentists have with Braun and Oral-B, but apparently they're good.
Are they?
What's
your opinion?
Well, I'm very old school, so I always like the manual way of doing things, because your toothbrush can die midway through your brush, and then that's not a good experience. But in saying that, they are very thorough. Sorry to any of the dentists out there, I'm not trying to offend. Those who know me know I'm very sarcastic. I don't want to dig myself a hole there with that. But no, it is. Electric toothbrushes are good because, you're not using vigorous motion manually. You're just kind of just popping it there and it's just cleaning the surrounding area sort of thing. But it's not the same. It's like getting your car, going to a car wash and then doing it by hand. You're always going to do maybe a better job by hand. It's a tough one. I think any strategy is good as long as you do it properly and you floss your teeth after. So, because when you're brushing your teeth, all that plaque gets pushed to the side, and then that's where it goes into the interproximal spaces. That happens naturally when you eat, though, as well. But that's why it's really important to floss, so that you're obviously flossing out whatever your toothbrush is pushing into the interproximal spaces. Yeah, so that's why it's really important. I don't know, it's a bit of a grey area to floss before brushing or floss after brushing. I kind of do both just to save my head. There's
no specification.
Well, if you think deeply over it, about it, if you floss before you brush, you're going to push food back into those spaces. And then if you kind of floss after you brush, you might have some left behind. You know what I mean? So you can do it before and after. That's what I recommend, but I just like to make life harder for myself. So, if anyone's keen to make their life harder, floss, brush, brush,
brush.
And froth while you're at it. Froth that toothpaste out. You're doing a great job. If you're not frothing, you don't have enough toothpaste. So, you have a Colgate. Maybe I can be a spokesperson for this.
That's cool though. So we have a little bit that we understand about Rent a Temp, what it is. We have a little bit about dental and what's it called? The
interproximal spaces.
Interproximal spaces.
I can go in depth if you like about
spaces. I can guarantee that no one that's going to watch this today is going to know, and if you know, you're a sick cunt. Anyway,
I could go more in depth about dental, so don't take all my words
as the
as good.
gospel, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So
I want to move on though, because you obviously you've built yourself up to this position where you've now got the business. You're now starting to thrive without getting more people come in. But I think what the viewers want to know too is, how was when we go back to like the beginning of time, right, for you? How was your early life in childhood, like when you were growing up, to eventually then get you to the point where you have this belief within you to want to go and start making this business rent attempt?
do you have a violin and a box of tissues? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Come on, where is this orchestra? He's coming out yet? Am I getting punked yet or what?
Like the guys
I,
that do that thing.
I love the handshake. That's just so intense. There's something about the handshake. Fangulio.
It's very Italian. Feels very Italian.
Bellissimo.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, so my childhood, where it all began. So I was born in Perth, Western Australia, Subiaco Hospital.
Subiaco.
Like the rest of Perth, pretty much. Like that was like the bougie hospital of Perth. Like if you're born around like Kelmscott, Armadale, it's kind of like, hey, you got a bit of food in you kind of thing.
Subiaco, isn't that where the that AFL team plays, West Coast Eagles?
Yeah, it's near the Wacker.
Subiaco.
Literally, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. There's a lot of sports that they play there. So yeah. So Subiaco, it's like just kind of like off skirts of the CBD. So it's kind of near like Cambridge. That a lot of areas in Perth are kind of named after places in England. Because as you might know, there was a lot of the vast English settlement went to Perth during migration. So yeah, there's a lot of places in Perth that are named either like traditionally Aboriginal names, because there's a lot of Indigenous in Perth as well, or very English as well. So that's the main cultures there. But yeah, so that's Subiaco. It's like a upcoming trendy part of Perth. King Eddie's. So I was born there, where my parents, they met in Perth. And how can I kind of summarize my upbringing? So it was exciting. My parents had partying a lot. They always had parties.
I was also a part of that, by the way.
You were, and your parents were.
I met you when I was about 1 or 2 years old, which
I think we met in our dad's bags. We were like energy.
We knew what was up before we even knew what was up.
Exactly. We were hanging out before they were hanging out.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? We're hanging in there. But yeah, so it was exciting. Like, had a lot of parties, and my dad was my mum's first ever partner. So they got together. It was a mistake, apparently, but here I am. What a wonderful mistake. Anyways, so I was probably the catalyst of my parents' relationship coming into the world. So growing up, it was very, can I say, like, my parents gave me the best life in terms of, there was always excitement. There was always something going on. I think being the firstborn as well, they kind of put me on a pedestal where I was like the one that always had the attention kind of thing, because I was pretty out there, as you remember, as me as a kid. I was always like the center of attention sort of thing. Schooling was okay. Like I went to school at a little school in Bentley. Trying to think back to that time. So I remember I was always very inquisitive, always wanting to know more. Like I remember from as young as I can remember as well, for as long as I can remember, as young as I was. I was very, very, God, I'm getting mixed up on my words at the moment. I'm really sorry.
I think back then too, like you always had an idea that, you wanted to be famous.
Yeah.
You wanted to be something.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah. So I was into singing and music and acting.
So you were singing back then as well.
Yeah. So I was always wanting to be famous. And I think my parents pushed for that as well, like because they could see potential in me at a young age sort of thing. I was always like, the clown, the one that always wanted to grab everyone's attention sort of thing. That changed, when we moved to Sydney. So when I was 10, that was when we left Perth and started new beginnings because my dad got into business with my uncle, as you know.
Yeah.
Went to school in Parramatta, and I think that was when I really started to feel emotions as well. Just being out of my comfort zone because, fundamentally I was at the school I was at in Perth, and I think, the kids around you kind of become family because as young as you sort of are, you're interacting with, people that they're kind of like blank canvases, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're in a class full of blank canvases and, there's no ammunition, there's no, anger, there's no hurt, you know what I mean, kind of thing. There's none of that. So I think it was very innocent when I was at school in Perth, but then when I came to school in Sydney, it was a lot harder to sort of fit in because it was kind of like I was coming in and, I was, coming during a period where kids had already developed their friendships and, they kind of already started their day one relationship sort of thing. So it's kind of like, who's this
everything
kid?
was already established at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah. Sorry if my vocab's not amazing, by the way, guys,
No, it's
today.
fine. It's fine.
A little
It's
bit sleep
fine.
deprived from my minor, but that's a story we'll talk about later. Baby brain is a real thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so I found that really hard, trying to fit in. I think I was always trying to fit in, but I was very shy. I was actually very, very shy fundamentally, especially being a kid put in an environment where you're forced to be out of your comfort zone. It's like an adult starting a new job. You have all these doubts and questions and you're a bit unsure and, it's like you don't know where to breathe because, you're in a new environment. Some people are naturally adapters, you know what I mean? And I think naturally I wasn't someone that could adapt. I kind of was forced into it from moving a lot and going to different schools. I'll tell you something funny actually. I remember it was for year 6 when we were finishing school. I invited everyone to this party that I was having when I was living in Wakeley. Remember that house you guys used to come to in the school?
Sorry. Mish used to live out this way as well.
Yeah, I did.
She used to live
I was a bit of a west side motherfucker.
in the area. In the area.
I was from the hood.
She was
yo.
2176.
I was. Was
Yeah.
it 2176?
It is 2176. This is
Forever is.
2176.
You know, they say
Yeah.
you can take the person out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the person.
Yeah.
It's still got those West. I'm the purest Westie. I'm from Western Australia. So. To all you Westies out there, unless you're from WA, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's talk later.
Yeah.
But I invited all these kids to my party. There was like 60 of them and like 2 showed up. It was so embarrassing. So that I remember, it's interesting because, it's like when they talk about memories that stay in your subconscious mind, they don't kind of play out until later on in life kind of thing. So that, for instance, having that party with no one showing up, I was always too scared to have parties later on in my life because I'm like, what if no one like comes to the party kind of thing? But I used to have some pretty wild parties as a teenager. So I think I picked up my game as I got a bit older. But I was a different person then. I was very insecure. I think everyone still has their insecurities though, but I was chubby. I loved eating. So, and being half wog, we had a lot of good food and I went sideways, so fitting in, at school and being in a completely different state with kids that had completely different upbringings, completely different influences. It was really daunting. I would definitely say the eastern states is a lot more different to WA. There's a lot of racism in Perth because of the Aboriginals, which is really sad. But then in saying that, I think where you are initially born and the environment you initially adapt to really does play a big role in terms of how you are as a person as well. So coming to a big city, these kids were used to a big city life and, hustle and bustle. For me, I came from like as slow as friggin' hell city, Perth, it's like a big country town.
It's a massive country town.
Yeah, where, people's intentions are different, people's personalities are different. And obviously, then we're kids, so, you don't really understand things then. But, it was different, and I think there was that stereotype a lot more in Sydney as a young kid of, the popular girls and the nerdy girls. And, and I was the nerd. Like I was the kid that used to sit by myself,
Yeah.
and I was always really scared to interact with people, and it was hard.
There is
So,
a class system in schools, like in primary school, most particularly I think in high school. And I was talking with the person who I had on in the previous episode, with Michael Luna, and yeah, he was telling me all about it. Like he was initially like in primary school, like he was up and about, and then in high school, some things happened, and he went into his shell.
yeah, and I think as well
And you
because
go into your shell, and I had the same thing. I started
And
going
I
into
think
my
as well,
shell. Yeah.
you don't really understand yourself throughout puberty, but you start seeing changes and, you start perceiving things a little bit differently then, but you don't have the life experience or the education at that point to know what's happening in your life. So then that's where, you start developing hormones, men testosterone, and that's where I think puberty can be a really hard time for everyone because, you're going through this transition of being a little kid and having your parents do everything for you. And you've got a very innocent, pure mind that, you start seeing those changes around you, and everyone's personality is different. Some people, are a bit more advanced at the age of 11 and 12.
Yeah.
Like I think you and I were very innocent. We came from very good families where our parents kind of protected us and sheltered us heaps. But there's a lot of kids out there where their parents kind of don't really care and expose them to a lot, so for innocent kids, it's really confronting, and they do go into their shell because, they're trying to adapt from being a kid to a teenager to what's happening to my body, and you feel embarrassed, you start developing body parts and hairs that you didn't have before, so at that age bracket, it's a hard time for a lot of kids. No one's like, oh my God. Well, some girls, they're like, look at these things. The popular boys are like, look at those things. And they start doing some weird shit at very young ages, and it shouldn't be happening that way. But I think that comes down to the influence of media as well.
Yeah, media. Yeah,
and I always say these days, that I think media has such a large influence on us as people. Like, you have this person on a movie that you connect to as an individual or you aspire to be like, and everyone has that, and it kind of sculptures people up into that. It's like the Kardashians. Like, look at the domino effect they created for the rest of society. All friggin' women look like Kimmy K now.
Yeah, so many people, so many women wanted to look and have that exact figure that you had.
Yeah,
They were
and
like
that's
aspiring to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And influences used to be subliminal through movies and music, but now there's influences in your face, on Instagram, where it's more like, here's a walk in my life, daily life, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. And,
through stories and through posts and all that type of stuff.
And I think people connect more with it now because there's that realistic side of things. Like, with movies, people know that it's not real. Well, as a kid, you think it's real until you watch making a movie,
you realize.
and then you start to kind of have your own perception of like, that's really fucked up, or, oh, that's cool. Like, you know what I mean? I want to be like this person. I don't really like that person.
Well, there's also biographies as well. And there's also like history that you see through movies as well.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think in movies that I noticed too, is that sometimes I feel like that the movies that come out, they're always trying to warn us of something that's potentially going to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you touched on the topic about, artificial intelligence, robots, and all that. Did you ever see that movie called I, Robot?
I knew you were going to say that.
I, Robot
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
I never got into those movies. Like, it's like Star Trek and like, Futurama and
Star Wars.
I think all of that is Star Wars. I think all of that, it's out there to kind of warm us up, and we look at it as make-believe. And, I looked at all those galactic sci-fi movies and whatever, and iRobot, and I didn't really take much interest in those movies because, I don't know, it was kind of like, it seemed too unrealistic to me at the time. Like, and, and back then, society was so different. Yeah. So, and technology hadn't reached its peak and it wasn't really evolving the way it's evolving so rapidly now that, I think people kind of took it with a grain of salt. Yeah. But now when we kind of look back at movies, like you were saying, even the movie The Day After Tomorrow, and, it's interesting because it's an insight of what's sort of to happen. But then it's questionable as well because I'm a big believer of the law of attraction, where it's like, well, are those movies kind of put out there so that they plant that seed in our head that we kind of consume our thoughts and fears based on those things that we somewhat attracted as a society. Like it's like a joint attraction. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
As
Like,
in that we're all feeling it at the same time.
yeah, well, it's kind of like, you listen to a song, you can play with you can develop friggin' bipolar from listening to a playlist of different musics. If you listen to a bit of trance, you want to go to the gym and dance.
Yeah.
If you listen to a bit of depressing music, you start thinking about your ex from 10 years ago. You know what I mean? You listen to happy music, you just want to dance and tell everyone how much you love them. You know what I mean?
The influence of music. It's that
yeah.
music and
It's the frequency.
The frequency,
Yeah.
exactly. The energy and the frequency that you hear from the music is what sets you into the specific mood that you're going to be in.
Absolutely. And that's where I'm kind of referring to with movies
Yeah.
as well. It kind of makes you question. Well, because they all work hand in hand. They're all media, you know what I mean? And they've got such a significant influence on society, on our personal beings, kind of thing. So, when you look at it, you're kind of like, okay, well, these movies, things happen. It was like the pandemic and then COVID happened. Or you remember the one, the Korean or the Chinese movie that came out, and there was like it was about a vaccine, and all of that. So it was one of those things. Sorry, to adjust myself. I'm a bit of a spaghetti head today.
Probably push it back to the side.
Push it back to the side.
No, your hair.
Oh, my hair.
It gets in the way.
Trying to hide my fadubitas, but okay. So yeah. You know what fadubitas
That's
are,
actually the
right?
first time
Anyone
I've heard
that's seen
that one. I haven't heard that one before, actually.
fadubitas.
Fadubitas.
Okay. Fadubitas in
It
here.
sounds something that you would like wear in the water.
Fadubitas.
Yeah, like you like it keeps you like afloat in the water.
Can you pass me my fadubitas, please? Kind of sounds like a code word or something really embarrassing, like.
Yeah, like you don't want to like mention it out loud.
Yeah,
it's
like Pig Latin, like.
Yeah, Pig Latin. Yes, yeah, Eshays.
The Ilchays, kind of that thing. But anyway, just wondering, how does my face look? I've got a bit of a chubby face. Side angle. But anyways, who cares? Yeah. I had a very well-fed weekend. I had a massive cheat week. But anyways, as I was saying, so with movies and stuff like that, I don't know, I try not to watch too much movies, unless it's a really good movie. I love thrillers.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But yeah, so I don't know, sometimes it makes me wonder if we're manifesting that because we're all watching these movies, like Netflix. We're all watching the same thing. It's all trends, what's trending these days. Everyone gets on board of it and people plants that seed in people's minds. So it's kind of like, okay, is someone writing the story of our life and what is going to happen next? Or are we all attracting it based on watching these things and perceiving it? And, so who knows? We'll never know. I put all those thoughts to bed a long time ago.
When you talk about Netflix, I haven't really seen this show before, but there's that show called Black Mirror.
Well, I've heard about that actually.
Isn't that one where like they're trying to plant a seed in the mind of like potentially like stuff that's also going to come. Another example of too is like The Simpsons, how the Simpsons is predicted like a lot of events that have happened.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, just move your mic just down a bit.
Do you know what the thing is as well with The Simpsons? And I always laugh at this. I'm so sorry to correct everyone. It wasn't The Simpsons that predicted everything. It was Matt Groening. And
Matt Groening that predicted everything.
All right?
Yeah.
Let's just set that straight.
It was Matt Groening. Yeah.
Oh my God, Bart predicted that. I'm like, do you mean Nancy Cartwright predicted that? He wrote the storyline, predicted that. But, I feel like as well, because we've got so many social influences, that is why people can't really connect with themselves. I feel like if you really disconnect from things and you sit down and meditate and you think, that a lot of things just come to you. You know what I mean? Like, so I think, with a lot of the things we hear and see that happen, it's kind of somewhat right in our face, but we get really caught up by distractions, social distractions, that kind of veer people away. And then it's not until bang, something happens. People are like, oh my God, I saw that on The Simpsons, or oh my God, that was on that movie, or you know what I mean, kind of thing. Like, it's like what's happening in the world at the moment with, say even COVID, when that happened. I remember being the conspiracy theorist, and I was like, it's going to cause job shortages, it's going to cause, a war, it will cause problems with fiat currency.
Small businesses will get knocked over.
Yeah, yeah. And I could see all of that. And I think because at the time there was so much scary things that were happening, we're forced to be isolated. A lot of people were connecting a lot more with themselves and thinking a lot more outside of the box, and people became woke, kind of thing. Like, I don't mean that in a rude way, because like there was things that a lot of us would talk about where we were like conspiracy theorists, but now that's classified as a woke person, you know what I mean, kind of thing. So, and I think, a lot of that, if people really sat there and looked at the future, you can see that a lot of these people that write these movies and shows, they just kind of have a bit more of an insight as to where life's going. And we could have the same, but we're just blocked off from social influences, you know what I mean? Instagram, social media. So we kind of see something and take it with a grain of salt, you know what I mean? But we don't think deeper. And I think that's where meditation and being in touch with yourself has become such a...
Like spirituality.
Yeah, has become such a big thing, because that's when you really connect and you think more outside of the box. And, naturally humans have their intuition. It's like birds. They can sense when the climate's changing. We have that gift, but it's just blocked off because we only use a small percentage of our brain.
All these things like social media, all that, I guess, I think there's other things as well. And the news is another thing, media as well, not just social media, but the media, like the News 7 News, Channel 9, whatever. All these things, they're all blocking. I feel like that they're there to notify us about what's going on, but I feel like at the same time is that there is a lot of propaganda there too.
Oh, and also, fear as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of fear mongering. There's like a lot of fear that they put into people's minds. They're showing us about all these things that are happening overseas. And so that you're watching these things, right? And naturally, as a human being, when you're watching other human beings suffer and it's actually real and it's actually happening, you get upset. So then you start going onto the internet and you search it.
Yeah.
And you dive deeper and deeper and deeper into it until eventually there's a point in time when you realize that it actually starts affecting your mental health.
Absolutely. And it's interesting as well because there's a lot of business involved in it.
The love that we have for each other and the love also for ourselves. And it puts us in this really hopeless mindset. Is there any hope?
And that's what I was saying. And it creates negativity, more negativity, and we all attract it. Like, absolutely. And I think, do you know what the scary thing is about that, though? And I kind of have this weird analogy about it, is it's kind of like, in some ways, it's becoming like the boy who cried wolf, like where we hear all these things that people just don't want to know anymore. That, there is some things that happen in the world where we're like, we should look out, you know what I mean? So it's kind of where, have we been overloaded with all this negativity where naturally we defer away from it? That when something bad does really happen, it's kind of like, holy shit, you know what I mean? Because no one's paying attention anymore. Like, they kind of push people away with that negativity. So that when there is things that you need to be cautious of, people don't believe it anymore. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like, it's like, say, COVID, what happened? There was all these question marks and fear that they created in people, that people kind of found out the truth down the track. You know what I mean? That was another thing that kind of ignited people from steering away from the news, because they were like, holy shit, they put us in all this fear, because, it creates cortisol in your body when you're stressed, when you're depressed, and, and it makes you sick. You know what I mean?
You become sick from it.
And people are like, I don't want to know about this anymore, which is so fine. Like, even me, I got into the news. I think it was a mum thing. I needed to add a bit of excitement into my life. So I'm like, what's going on in the world today, kind of thing. And, I started getting really into this whole war that's happening in Israel, and it was giving me anxiety. And then I kept getting sick myself, like, constantly. And, and I think it's one of those things that it puts people in a negative mind frame, but we should be aware of some things. But, if something really drastic was to happen, it's like the boy that cries wolf. People aren't going to really believe it, because the media just overexerts and over-exaggerates everything, it kind of, The
other thing is that we're also getting it from the perspective of Australia. They're
Yeah,
not seeing it from what they are seeing over there.
absolutely. And
We're not seeing it from there.
it's like, can I mention something as
Of course
well,
you can.
personal?
Of course you can.
It's like, what happened to me where I had my accident.
What happened to you again? If you can.
So I had a pretty bad car accident. I was going through a pretty bad stage of my life at the time. Like I was struggling a lot mentally and emotionally. Because that was when I was pursuing my dream, trying to achieve rent a temp, and I was working like 22 hours a day. I was running off no sleep kind of thing. And my friend died. I think I told you about it.
Yeah.
She was found dead in her house.
Shit.
Yeah. We don't know if it was, there's a massive question mark, behind what happened to her because she was going down the wrong path. And she was partying a lot, and that's why I'm so against cocaine even, and sorry to bring this up. Is that okay if I can talk about this?
Of course.
Because it can really fuck people's lives up, and I've seen it. Part of my friend, can I speak like that? Oh, can I? Okay.
Yes. It's
Anyway,
fine.
sorry,
It's
guys.
okay.
You don't have much of a filter,
She's very
right?
modest.
So anyway, it really does, and my friend was, she was found dead in her house, and and at that point I was living with my daughter's dad, we're going through the beginning of our very dark beginnings kind of thing. And I just wasn't mentally coping, and I was working at a dental practice in DY that day. And I had like just a couple of drinks, like I barely drank. And my body was just overtired. I wasn't in a good headspace. I wasn't thinking rationally. And all I wanted to do was just go home. I just wanted to go home, and I ended up head on with a pole. I hit my car. I fell asleep. Driving, and it was all over the news. And the story the media portrayed of me was completely different to what actually happened. I was a dental nurse. I had my BMW at the time. I did have a couple of drinks. The rest of the story is BS. So that for me was a real insight of the media, and how they twist things. There's always a truth between a lie, and at the end of the day, they're a business, they make money, and what better way to make money than making a headline of someone that is meant to be helping people that just needed help themselves. You know what I mean? And that's how the media, they do that to celebrities. They do that to
celebrities suffer from this issue quite a lot.
They want to really destroy their reputation, And it's because they want a story. The media wants a story because they see someone that everyone looks up to or they love or is doing something great or whatever. They might not like that, and these guys know people. I don't know who they know, but they know someone.
I think that they do like it because they understand that it's good. It's good, like good publicity. Like it's good to see someone do that. But at the same time, when they see someone going down, they see it as an even better opportunity.
Yeah, they thrive off of it.
They thrive off it. They get up because they get a rush, and they understand that they can make a big business out of it too. Because when let's say you think of someone from your past, and it could be anyone, right? You're going to think of the good things, but if really bad things happen, don't you feel like as if the bad things really stand out?
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like it's similar to them. They understand that if they can really see that something bad happened to them and they're doing something stupid, rather than sort of approaching the person in a way where they can sort of assist them and help them get out of this struggle, they see it as a way to make them as an example as to why they're a shit cunt in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's kind of like even sometimes relationships.
It's very evil what they do.
It is. And, it's a domino and it's a butterfly effect because I think that's where society is changing a lot, where there's a lot of people out there that can do that. Like say, you could be in a relationship with someone and you could be the best partner in the world, you know what I mean, and do everything to make that person happy and even deplete your own self of your own happiness, because you just love this person, and it might be something as little as standing up for yourself, because that person, it's kind of like a power trip sometimes, where one person has the upper hand because the other person, they know they're always going to be there for them. You know what I mean? Which is really sad because relationships shouldn't be like that. So there's always that one person, and then it's not until that person maybe might have enough of that other person's crap where they're like, no, I'm not doing that for you anymore, or do it yourself, or whatever kind of thing. Then all of a sudden they're the bad guy. This person that's always been there and done things and done the right thing, they're the bad guy, when realistically that person who's giving them that stigma should really probably sit back and be like, well, this person's done all of these things for me and they've just done one thing, like stand up for themselves, and now they're the bad guy. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And I think it's just a power trip, and it's sad because media has the biggest influence on people.
Yes, it does.
And I think people, without noticing, subconsciously pick up those traits, and it's really sad because it makes the really good people become more resilient, where they it shakes them out of that as well, and just creates a domino effect. It's like cloning. You know what I mean?
It really does rip away the human soul, and the higher purpose the reason as to why we exist here in the first place.
They
rip that away from you, and they just place you into this mindset where you eventually just become like as if you're just part of like a full-on system.
You're right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And I feel like that the way that you want to be able to try and get yourself out of that mindset.
Exactly.
Because you want to try and make your soul shine bright for as long as you exist and live.
And I think that's why sometimes you get celebrities or people that make it that disappear and steer away from, being in front of the world, because I think they see that, and it really makes them question things, and then they kind of realize and see between the lines kind of thing, and I think that's where even Jim Carrey, I love Jim Carrey. You love Jim Carrey.
Brand.
Yeah, a lot of these celebrities, they're backing away because, they can see it, and then they're looked at as the crazy ones, you know what I mean? And because people just live in this bubble, sort of thing.
People don't understand like what that person was necessarily going through. And
people just judge.
Jesus, I was actually having a conversation with someone. I was actually in the sauna today before I came here, and I had a conversation with a guy in there, and he was talking about how, he believes that people are out there, on some people on podcasts or some people on like movies and whatever, or even when they're actors and they're actually out there just being normal, they feel like that. You feel like sometimes that the person is not necessarily being themselves. You feel like that they're still playing a character. That they're not actually being, it's like as if it's artificial. It doesn't feel very.
Do you know what
organic.
I think it is as well?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like, because even Walt Disney movies have been designed to do this to kids, because what better age to sculpture their mind? 0 to 7, as you would know, is the most influential time of anyone's life. I think what happens is they see, like, say, talent. Like, say I look at you as a very talented person who should have been on TV. Hence why you're doing a podcast, which I'm really, really proud of you for. But I think when you're an actor and you're in, the spotlight, you're already kind of taken out of your comfort zone because you know that everyone's watching you, but then you want to give it all that you've got, kind of thing. So, they do a really good job at acting, and the movies they do or whatever, that I think they start to lose the authenticness of themselves. They start to forget who they are because you're constantly pretending to be someone different and someone that you're not. So before you know it, you're kind of like, who am I? You know what I mean? Because you're an actor, right? And then you've got to act in front of your fans. You're constantly taken out of your comfort zone. That as people, that like when you watch these motivational videos, like you got to come out of your comfort zone and break yourself to elevate to be someone else. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like, I think what's more beautiful than breaking yourself and elevating and becoming this undefeatable person is just being your authentic self. And that's what a lot of people fall in love with, is people's authentic self. And I think that's why people love kids. You know what I mean? Because the kids are just so happy and loving and vibrant, and everything you see about them is authentic. You know, with adults, actors, you know, where it's like even just working in a profession, you've got to change who you are to become that person. If you're a lawyer, you know, you've got to be a boss in the courtroom and outside. You know what I mean? So then it changes them, you know, and it's the same with actors. You know, they're constantly pretending to be someone different to play the part of the character that they're pretending to be. That before they know it, they become that character and you lose yourself, you know. And I think it's just like even a person, you know, that's not even an actress or an actor, you know, going through certain things in life where you've had to change who you are to be able to handle a part, or, you know, a certain chapter of your life even will change you. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of my take on that.
It molds you into a completely
different person.
Completely different person.
I don't know if I'm saying that properly.
No, you said it.
I know you've got your listeners.
No.
So
I think they're gonna like that.
I get a bit nervous, you know.
I think they're gonna like that.
I'm like DEFCON in my heart.
Like, look, one of the guys like there in the sauna too, you know, as we're talking about that whole character thing, and he was saying, yes, people even on podcasts, like they actually play a specific character. Yeah. Not all. I
was gonna say, yeah.
Some do.
Because say you are who you are, like, you know what I mean? Like, and as you grow, I think you'll always be who you are, which is a great trait you have, you know. And I think ego maybe gets the better of some podcasters, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Do you think, like, okay, like, and I think maybe it's just because do you know what it is? And it's not even the terminology ego, because I don't really like that word. It's like conspiracy theorists. I don't really like that word. It's a bit uncompassed. I feel like podcasters, for instance, they'll build that ego. It's a protection mechanism. You know what I mean? Because you're putting yourself out there to be judged and have all these different opinions. It's like the kid that was bullied, like myself. There's a stage that kid's going to get bullied and bullied and bullied and bullied. They're going to eventually snap back and be like, I'm not going to put up with this crap anymore. You know, so I think, you get podcasters where they cop, and influencers, they cop so much mixed opinions of people, and they've got a lot of pressure because they've got all these people watching them, you know. So I think they build that as a defense mechanism to protect them, you know, and so that, you know, and that's a strength. And then people admire strength as well, because I think when you build that strength, that's when you can go to your next turning point as well. So,
but you also got to say, aspire to say too, that that's also that podcasters too, especially the ones that talk about really tough subjects, like it's vulnerability.
Yeah,
you're so vulnerable to the world. Like, if you're really big and out there, like luckily this one hasn't got a lot of traction just yet.
It will.
But it will. But for those that have a lot out there already, that have built that traction, and to have those conversations and to be vulnerable to say that and have the world watch you and build an opinion on you. You know what I mean? Like, there could be people out there that are making fake profiles about you to have a laugh about you.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me.
And and I think what happened to you actually regarding that? What happened to you?
Yeah,
because that's a real thing, and that's what I'm touching on actually.
Yeah. So cyberbullying. So as I was saying before, going back to the topic of my school years and childhood and growing and all of that. So obviously we moved to Sydney, and then there was that party I threw where no one showed up, 2 people. So then that kind of created, like, obviously an insecurity in me. And then, so I had that was my first little seed, right? And then we moved to Brisbane. So I went to school in Parramatta, as you know. I went to St. Pat's and then OLMC. And then I moved to Queensland, and I went to Miami Primary School for a little bit. This is going to go on a bit of a tangent. Miami, bitch. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I'm going to get there.
Miami's in
cyberbullying.
Miami's in Gold Coast, by the way.
Redneck City. But now they love all these tan beauties. Yeah. It's like, fucking hell. Like,
they bring them in. They're not peasants anymore.
Lower pant cuz, like, you know, they want to, like, look like wogs now, but back then, like, anyways.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, actually, this is one of my sob stories. So my parents put me in this school, Miami Primary School, and little did I know as well at the time, the kids that I was very scared of, because I was only about 12 at the time, I was one day going to be friends with later on in life. I didn't know that. So it's interesting how you meet people in your life at a time, and they might not be the people for you, but maybe somewhere along the track they are, they're there. Anyways, that's a bit off topic, but I remember I was buddied up with this group of girls, and because I was a bit chubby and I was wog looking, and I was in a mostly Caucasian school at the time. Like, I'm sure everyone was mixed, but that was back when, if you had fair skin, you were just Aussie, forget about the ancestors. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So I feel like DNA tests started all of that. But anyways, so I remember I went to the bathroom and all the kids ran away from me. And I remember coming out looking for them, and because they just didn't want to be my friend because I was different. I looked different. I was nervous as well because, I'd been to 2 different schools prior that I didn't really fit into. Coming out of my initial environment, where people just accepted me for who I was, kind of thing. So they'd run away, and I was bullied a lot in that school, but I was only there temporarily until my parents sent me to Ormiston College, which was in Brisbane, that I went to, where I had my first proper bullying kind of thing, and that's where the cyberbullying came into place. So I remember when I went to that school, it was a very prestigious school, and, there was a lot of parents that had very good professions that sent their kids to that school. And so there was a lot of not categorizing, because there's good and bad in everyone, but it does start from the parents, because like I've got a kid, everything I do, I'm influencing my kid. There was a lot of superficiality at that school, a lot of wealth. And, they probably came from families, where their parents were really hard on them, and then the parents were hard on their kids. And then the kids would bully at school, you know what I mean? Because they didn't know any different. So, I was the chubby kid that no one wanted to sit next to, that if I liked someone, I was the gross girl. And
What did they do?
didn't they do to me? It was like one of those things, like I don't even know where to start. Like I remember like we had our school waltz, for instance. Like, where
the cyberbullying.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I was bullied a lot at that school, and I was dealing a lot with body image complexities at the time because, puberty and all of that. And I hated the way I looked. And I was bullied with this boy, Daniel. And at that time, that was when, because even though it started in 2000, that was the tip of the millennium, you know what I mean? They were slowly getting us into it. So in school at that period of time, we were building websites, like HTML websites. And there was a platform called MapMice, I think it was, MapMice, old school, where we'd build websites, and it was the thing that we used to do then, kind of thing. So I used to sit there as a little geek and build all these websites and whatever. And that was back in the MSN days, and
Good times.
MySpace, all of that,
Good times.
Bebo, all of that.
Yeah.
So, and I remember it like yesterday. I'm skipping a lot of my story, but I'll get to the point because I do harp on a bit. I was doing my homework and I was on MSN and whatever, and then this girl, Christy, that I was friends with at the time, she goes, "Oh my God, ha ha ha, did you see the website?" And this girl was nasty. She was so nasty to me at school. But when you're young and innocent, you don't see nastiness because your heart's pure. Some people's hearts, but anyway. So she was like, "Ha ha ha, did you see what that website?" And I'm like, "What website?" Anyway, she ended up sending me the link to it, and it was of me and Daniel Wang, this guy that I went to school with. What a name, Dan Wang. Anyways, so here I'm bullying him, poor guy.
No, he's all right.
But that's one of the reasons why he was bullied, because of his last name, and kids are immature. So anyways,
I think
there was this website, because I had a crush. That's right. I had a crush on this guy named Stan. I remember now. And to him, he was just repulsed about the fact that I liked him. Like, ew. Like, how could the fat ethnic girl like me? That's disgusting. Because status is a thing that, when you're kids as well, So anyways, what he went and done was he made this website about me and Daniel, and it was pretty much just absolutely ridiculing us, like, calling me like a beach whale, and that, I'd eat Jenny Craig and, and just nasty, really, really nasty. And then there was Daniel as well. They like attached our heads to like whales, and it was really, it's funny now that I think about it, but it was pretty slack. And I remember that feeling, because I was already at that point trying to lose weight, because my dad picked on me a lot about my weight as well. Yeah, I got picked on a lot about my weight. And then I remember as well, when I was 10, I went to the doctor and he said that I was overweight. So that stuck with me as well. And then that website was kind of like the tipping
That was the
point.
melting point.
Yeah, that was the melting point. And I remember that feeling. Like, it even makes me want to tear up, like, kind of thing. And I remember that feeling because I'd been bullied by another guy, Daniel Quigley, as well. I remember.
Daniel's all over you, eh?
I know, now that I think about it, far out. No wonder why I dodged that last Daniel that liked me. I'm like, warning. Anyway,
You're on a hat trick.
anyways, so what happened was, even Daniel, like, he'd be like, oh my God, did you feel that earthquake? I used to be called the fat girl. Yeah, it would be like the fat girl was walking past. Like, he would pick on me like there was no time. And then it was funny because he hooked up with my cousin years later. Another story. Anyways.
He found his way into the family.
He did. I still don't know how, but anyways. And I remember that night just grabbing myself and just crying. Like, I don't think I slept that night. I think I was only like 13. I don't think I slept that night. And I was like, I'll never be fat again. And there's obviously a lot more to a person than what they look like, So to feel like that, it's really sad. So I empathize with people that, have that struggle, because you never know what their struggle is, So then what happened from there was, that was my first encounter of cyberbullying. And then I was just so determined to lose weight. So my parents would be asleep, and I remember I used to sneak out of the house at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning and just run. And man, I had some balls back then, because if you would have seen what I was running through, holy shit, you'd think a murderer lived in there. It was just like a dark alleyway, because we lived in Redland Bay at the time. That's like in between Brisbane and Gold Coast.
I didn't know.
There was a house that was water, and there was that really creepy downstairs area. Yeah, that. I had some cojones then, because I would not fucking do that now. And I remember just running, and then my parents would be asleep. They must have been like heavy sleepers, because I'd run on I was like a racehorse on the treadmill. My dad got my mum a treadmill, and I'd just run. They ended up hiding it. And I swear to God on my daughter's life, I would do 1,000 sit-ups a day. That's how determined I was. So if you're determined to do anything, you can do it. You just got to apply yourself. But I was that determined. But it got really unhealthy to the point where I started not eating. And I started watching everything I put in my body. Like, I was scared to breathe because I thought air would make me put on weight. And at that point, because I went into this spiral and I didn't realize how detrimental it was and what I was doing to my body at the time. Like, I remember would be sitting at the dinner table with my parents. I'd mastered the art of not eating. And I know that sounds really weird to say, so well that I'd be sitting at a table and I would clear my plate without them even knowing I didn't eat a single thing. Like, I used to wear really baggy clothes. Like, I'd wear like jumpers, and I'd just like push it into my jumper. So I'd have all these foods stuffed in my jumper, quickly put them in my pants. Just, that's what I would do. Like, I started hiding my food. Like, I'd get to, in the mornings, my mum would have a shower, and I'd pour cereal in a bowl and mix it. And then I would pour it into the toilet so it looked like I'd eaten, and I'd leave it on the sink. And and it was very I learned how to hide that a lot. And then I'd get to school, I'd throw my lunch out. So I'd try break temptations, kind of thing. And I'd do that.
So it's like as if you were fasting.
Pretty much. That's why I'm against fasting, because I know where it's not good for your body.
So you were fasting, but were you eating at any time of the day?
No. And then when I was eating, because obviously my mum, she started catching on, I then developed bulimia. Because when I would eat,
what is bulimia?
So bulimia is where you eat and you somewhat regurgitate your food. So you force yourself to vomit. And I remember I became so obsessed with weight loss and wanting this perfect person in my mind based on feeling like I didn't fit in, feeling like I was different, feeling like I was ugly. I was never good enough. I went to all these extreme depths where I would watch videos like of Dr. Phil and remember Dr. Phil. I needed Dr. Phil at that time, but hey. Anyways, like I just became
Dr.
obsessed.
Phil.
Yeah, and I would use cords to make myself vomit. Like I would maneuver a cord down my throat to make myself gag. And yeah, it was really bad. Like I'd pretend to have a shower or something. And then my mum more so started catching on to all these patterns. And then what happened was I was still at that school, but the bullying and the cyberbullying and all of that, my parents didn't really go to the principal about it. Mr. Weber, that was his name at the time.
Like the barbecue.
No, he was cooked. Anyway, it was cooked. Anyway, Mr. Weber. Anyways, yeah, and I remember, I think when I started, because I went from like 58 kilos to like 32 kilos very quickly.
In what amount of time? Do you remember the amount of time it took for you to get there?
It was probably like maybe 5-6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, 5-6 months to the point where my body was actually shutting down. So, yeah, so my mum started catching on because I was wearing a lot of baggy clothes. Like I remember, thanks darling.
Okay.
I remember sitting there constantly like sizing my wrist. I just loved feeling my bones. It was really gross. It was like I wanted to be invincible. Like
it's like you went from like one extreme to the other.
Yeah. And that's why as well I believe how much influence media has, because back then it was about, the perfect body and, and in Women's Weekly, there was all these dieting fads and I was always on the cabbage soup diet or
there was a lot of ads.
I tried all of them. Cayenne pepper, friggin' I was like, I'm surprised I didn't turn into a cayenne pepper. I lived off that.
Cayenne pepper was nice.
Yeah, it was so good. Sorry. And anyways, I'm like, do I touch it? Do I breathe now?
No, just drink it. It's okay. There you go. It's a nice thing.
Very nice.
Yeah. This actually surprisingly helps with fasting.
I actually like it. Yeah.
This actually aids with fasting because it actually tells your it's sort of what it does is that it tells your brain and your stomach, because your stomach is like also that it's full.
It's funny you say that. Do you know what else does that? Chewing gum. Because when I had my eating disorder,
really?
I lived on chewing gum and I had the best teeth because of it. Because you eat chewing gum and it's constantly like, it's creating saliva in your mouth. So the more saliva you have in your mouth,
like 5 gums.
Pretty much. I was the minty fresh.
Yeah.
So so anyway, so so my mum started catching on. And then she took me to the doctor, and I remember this fucking asshole. This was after I was in hospital. I was put in a girls' clinic as well where I had to stay. So I was in hospital with a gastric tube. I'll never forget that thing that went up my nose. It was, that was like a nightmare. I remember them just feeding it in and me screaming the hospital down. I pulled it out. It was a feeding tube to feed me because I wouldn't eat.
Oh.
Feeding tube. I had a tube that went into my nose, into my stomach, that was feeding me because I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't even take water. I was on the verge of dying. Like I had no pulse. Nothing fit me. I was wearing kids' clothes and I was 13 at the time. 13 going on 14. Like I remember wearing pants and having to tie the string around. But in my mind, I was disgusting. I hated what I saw.
So bulimia, what it is though, is it's not necessarily a disorder that you're born with. It's something that's more mental.
Yes, I think it's catalyst of anorexia, because that's what I had, anorexia. But they kind of work in conjunction with each other. So when you don't have control over your anorexia and your intake and what you're eating and all of that, you've got to get that food out straight away. You're teaching your body to run on empty. And that's why I'm so against fasting, because I'd seen so many dietitians and specialists that when you fast, your body goes into starvation mode. So whatever you eat, your body stores it as fat to prepare itself for its next starving session, pretty much. So, and when it's doing that, it's actually putting a lot of stress on your organs and your body and your cortisol. And so fasting's not good. Like the best fasting, because I've looked into it, is the 48-hour fast. And they recommend it to cancer patients, to people that have had autoimmune diseases, that are really unwell, because what it does is it reboots your system. But during that fasting period, the 48 fasting period, you're just putting antioxidants and replenishing yourself with superfoods and all of that kind of stuff, so that reboots your system. You know what I mean? And it creates that replenishing healing process. So this whole fasting fad, I'm pretty against it based on my experience of having an eating disorder. Because I had anorexia and bulimia for about 11 years. So I had it from 13 till about 22, 23. And that's where even, and sorry to say this, but that's where I got into smoking marijuana as well, because it helped me get over my anorexia, because I ate. Like it actually made me.
Because it makes you.
Yeah, so that's when there was all these medical studies about it. I could understand some aspects of where it helps people medicinally, because it did help me. But in excess, I really don't think it's good. And I think by the government legalizing it, like say cigarettes or alcohol or whatever, it kind of gives people that green tick to be like, okay, I can have this whenever, wherever the hell I like, because the government says it's okay. But it has a lot of adverse effects, as you would know. You know what I mean? So
I had a time where when I was smoking it quite often. And I remember that. And I think the way that I see it, I think it's okay, but I think that what we need to understand as humans, we need to understand that it's a tool.
Yeah, and in moderation.
It's a tool.
Moderation.
It's not something to, because I think what you're saying is people just going out and having it all the time because doctor says yes. And that is true.
Yeah.
Because yes, there are ramifications for that, what it will do to you.
Exactly.
It's very, very true. It'll take away, if you're having it every single day, it will take away just your desire to really want to do anything.
Yeah,
your desire to want to do, literally to want to do anything, to have desires maybe to go exercise or something. It will eliminate that. It will take that away from you. Or maybe your desire to have the confidence to go out there and do something brilliant with your life.
Well, it's a depressant at the end of the day, and I think that's where
it brings you back in.
It can have a lot of adverse effects being legalized, because coming from someone, and I always say, as you know, like, no one's really relatable unless they've experienced something, or they can't really understand a situation unless you've experienced it and you know how it made you feel. And, that's when you're relatable kind of thing. Yep. So because we have gone down that path, I think we can see it from a different point of view to say people that look at it as all positives. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like we can see the negatives of it, making you demotivated, making you, not have that motivation to want more for your life. And that's not for everyone, but I think some people don't have that limit. Like some people know their limit, some people don't. And sometimes that's a genetic thing as well. Addiction's genetic sometimes, it can be passed through generations. And some people don't know that they have that addictive genetic in them, So you get some people that get really into it and delve really into doing something because they just love the feeling. Mm-hmm. It's used for ADHD as well on a medicinal basis. Mm-hmm. That it makes that person think it's okay to do it 24/7 from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep, but they don't realize the detrimental effects it has on them, or just, it can cause schizophrenia, it can cause bipolar, it can cause depression. It's a depressant, better than maybe alcohol, because I think alcohol really distorts your consciousness.
I do think though, addiction to alcohol, I think it's worse.
That's what I mean. Absolutely. And it's legal. And, and people that can ridicule, I think, people that want to smoke a joint over drink, treating your priorities straight, because you are putting ethanol, which goes in your car, in your body. And it does. People fight. People can commit suicide. People change their aura.
Mhm.
You know, you can either be really happy or really aggressive, or do some things that you never, like, you can't take back. You know what I mean? Under the influence of alcohol.
It takes away that, because yeah, I think people, because you got to think about it too, is that when you are at that level of tipsy, or maybe even drunk to a certain extent, not completely blackout drunk, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
It feels good. And the moment that you start getting that feeling, you're like, what could I possibly achieve in this
Yeah.
potential time that I have right now? Something maybe crazy or fun by having more of this. And so you go through that thought process, but at the same time, I think what the alcohol does as well is that it rips away that whole feeling of insecurity that you can't do something.
Yeah, you become a bit more invisible, I think,
Yeah,
when you drink.
you get this feeling of the fact that you can actually go out there and do something. And let's say, for example, it's like if you're a guy and like you don't think that girls like you when you're sober, when you're talking to them, because maybe when you're in a sober mindset, you just might not possess that edge.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you're under the influence of alcohol, you have a completely different edge to you.
It's funny you say that as well, because I think when in my heyday, when I used to enjoy drinking and partying, that's why I used to do it, because I would become, because I think because of like so much of what I've been through as a kid and a teenager, and you know, everyone has their insecurities. I think drinking for me was my way of showing people, hey, I can be fun, I can be outgoing, I can be, you know, the life of the party, and people liked partying with me. We used to have a lot of fun, you know, but
We actually
then,
lived together, by the way.
yeah,
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 we
we
actually
did,
did.
we
Yeah,
did. But then I wasn't drinking, and I
yeah,
was
yeah.
boring, and I went
I
through a
got it at
lot
the
of,
wrong time.
he
Yeah,
did,
I
he
got it at the
did.
wrong
And
time.
yeah, you did, you really did.
Yeah.
And, it was, yeah, but then, you know, obviously, you know, you feel really bad the next day after drinking. And so I can understand where people drink for that confidence. Like, I've done that,
Mhm.
you know, we've all done it. But I think it's like, I don't know, like, it's funny because you get people that are naturally born that know what's right and wrong. And then you get people like myself where I got to test the boundaries a bit to learn what's right or wrong, kind of
Mhm.
thing, you know? So sometimes you get people though that might have drinks and they know when to stop, you know, and then you get some people like us where we're like, yes, another one, another one. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like, so I think it comes down to how you're feeling
Mhm.
inside, you
Mhm.
know, before you drink or before you do
Mhm.
anything. You know, if you're depressed and you drink, you're going to maybe do something that you're going to regret later, you know,
Isn't
and
it
it's,
isn't it fascinating that these people, right, they're bringing out this product for humans to consume, right? And they people like drinking, you feel good. Yes, this is true. But by doing it a lot, it is going to cause you some severe problems. It'll kill you.
absolutely,
It will kill you quicker if you're drinking
absolutely.
all the time. You'll mess up all your organs, your kidneys,
It's that. Like,
yeah,
I've
your
never understood how
brain.
people can wake up with hangovers every day. Like, that's,
Yeah.
ugh,
I
I need
remember the
anything
hangover days. Like
worse.
I remember that. Like I remember going through that really crazy party stage of my life in 2019.
Mm,
Specifically, I remember it. And it was fun. It was fantastic. I loved it.
the hangovers weren't though.
They weren't, yeah. But it was fantastic. Like going out there, meeting all these different people, like meeting all these different girls as well. Like I used to love it. And it was fun because
Mm,
you're getting yourself out there, people were liking you, but what you don't realize is that these people are also going through something similar, and maybe it could be like their job. Maybe their job is very demanding, and they need
yeah,
and they
stress,
want to get they need
like an
some sort of an
escape.
escape. Yeah, that's what you see in the city. Like you see in the city, like there's a massive drinking culture there. Like
Yeah.
especially like on weekdays, especially on Friday night. Like that's the best day to go out to the city because everyone's coming out of the whole week of just copying all that shit all day, making all those trek backwards and forwards, getting up early all the time, like having to do everything possible to make sure that they make their boss happy. And then it gets to like 6, 7 o'clock. Oh, let's go, and then it was, yeah, let's go for a drink, everyone.
Mm.
There's a huge drinking culture in the city, and I completely understand why.
And it's
People fall
interesting.
under that spell.
Yeah, and it's interesting
Yeah.
because it was like what we're saying about different
Hmm.
socioeconomics as well. Like
Hmm.
where, like, say I live in towards the city, like I live in Hunters Hill. So you live out here, you live like more suburban, seeing the dynamic of the energy coming from near the city to coming out to suburbia. There's a lot more, you can just feel there's families, there's a lot more traditionalism, there's a lot more, like I feel like, and I'm not judging, but I feel like, say yourself, for instance, you would have better chance of meeting a really nice person and having a really, really beautiful life together with someone, say living in a suburbia kind of place, than say living in the city where there's so much options and people are, yeah, drinking and, they're constantly looking for escape to have, this life and, that they desire to have. That's actually pretty lonely. Like, you know what I mean? Like going out with friends and drinking and then struggling the next. You don't have that family connection. You know what I mean? Not everyone,
Hmm.
but a lot of people that live around the city, because it is expensive, they work a lot more and then they find an escape a bit more, which might be, yeah, drinking, like you said, that culture, or,
Hmm.
drugs or whatever kind of thing to escape that 9 to 5. And it's a depressant. Like, you see pretty empty souls, kind of, and what they kind of sacrifice
Hmm.
to have that kind of life. And yeah, they turn to negatives to sustain that life, you know what I mean, kind of thing,
Hmm.
as opposed to, say, coming out here, you see a lot more families and a lot more, it's just a different vibe. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? It's like, I suppose being in Bondi as opposed to out here, like Bondi,
I mean, I
you're going
was
to want to,
just there. I was there for a week,
yeah. So,
3 weeks ago.
you want to have a drink, you want to exercise, you feel a different vibe. And then
There's a
when you come
very
here,
different
it's
vibe.
more like,
Mhm.
so has your nonna cooked any pasta today? What's for dinner, ma? Like, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
really
but
different, yeah.
that's a nice way to live because, there's a lot more love,
Mhm.
There might be, sometimes problems, but people work through it. You know what I mean? And sometimes, yeah, like that saying, more money, more problems. So, you do. Like, I remember I was dating that guy once upon a time, the race car driver. I don't know if I want to say his name on here,
That's fine.
but he lived out in next to Point Piper, Double Bay.
Double Bay, yeah. Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
and he was telling me like how this letter went out to one of the schools that parents were going to have, I think it was Child Protection Services contacting all of them if they kept partying and taking drugs in front of their kids. And that's parents just being humans that have these really high paying jobs and these really extravagant lives, but they're taking things to be able to withhold that, and to be able to sustain that life because they work a lot. So they want an escape. There's that depression. So they want to have something to make them feel better, and it's just a butterfly effect, and
Give me a bit of an out there question.
tell me, talk to me.
Do you do you think that the reason as to why also part of the escape, because the escape can be for many reasons. You touched on your bulimia and anorexia. You wanted to escape. You had your fun after that in your party phase, and because of the fact that you went through all those things in school where people looked at you like as if you were nothing.
Mm.
That's how you put it. And then you realized that you wanted to be something. And then you worked hard to become that. And then you found alcohol and all these other things.
Yeah.
We consume these things because of the way also about how we feel about each other,
Mm.
ourselves. And then you come into work and then you start wanting to make like all this money and then come into this culture with all these other people. And then, they're drinking all that stuff too in order to sustain that lifestyle, like what you're saying then about with the parents. Okay. But do you feel like that as if, all these things that are created and exist out there so that they can make revenue to prevent us from the opportunity to actually reaching the point of what our higher self as a human being and what we're supposed to become actually, like for us to become that real
Yeah.
higher version of ourselves, because we are more than sitting behind a desk and sitting behind a computer in an office that's like, you know, uh, they've got like that divider type thing, like
Oh,
you
yeah,
see in the
yeah.
offices, like in city and all that type of stuff. Like that's depressing. You can hear a pin drop in those things. Like
Mm.
where's the humanity in that? But they're doing it because they can make money and it allows them to get all that. So I think what I'm really trying to get at is I feel like all these things they're designed in this society to make the machine of the society work,
Mm.
but to prevent us from achieving our higher self as to what we're supposed to become.
Well, that's this school. It trains you up
Mhm.
to be a 9 to 5 shit kicker. I'm joking. Like, you know what
I
I
mean,
mean? Like, that's
but
the first
it's harsh, but
introductory to it.
it's sort of it's true.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's not that anyone's stopping you. Like, I know that being an employee, you're always gonna come to a dead end because you're making someone else's dream come true. Um, if you've got a really good boss, that's great. You know what I mean? Kind of thing that wants you to grow and, you know, but then sometimes I think it comes down to your boss as well. Like, you know, like if they're an insecure person and they want to be a control freak and whatever, then yeah, they're going to make their staff feel that way. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. But if someone's going to be a boss where they're actually going to lead the herd and, you know, I think some people misconstrue that term boss, you know what I mean, where they
Mhm.
think I control you, I pay you, I own you. That's not how it is, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, we're a team, we work together. I saw something great in you, that's why I've got you on my team, let's do this together, like kind of thing. So I see what you're saying, and I think, yeah, maybe as a society, that's, yeah, why we are fundamentally educated and put into this 9 to 3, you know, for kids or, you know, whatever. And it teaches you it molds you for the working world. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because when you get to year 11 and year 12, if you don't do good, you're going to fail in life and become a garbage truck driver, which is absolute bullshit. You know what I mean? But that's what they kind of, the stigma around it. And, you know, like, yeah, you learn about things but really fundamentally we learn about things that aren't really relevant to our life. Like they are,
Well,
like some things are, like to
there's a
be
little bit
fair,
of a
because they kind
bit
of
of fear
introduce you.
a
Well,
little bit of fear they put there. A little bit.
yeah, well, it's like, say, you know, there's classes for business, there's geography, there's maths, there's art, there's cooking, all of these different subjects that you might get into because it's an interest of yours. It kind of does kickstart you to, you know, wanting to lead you down that path, but it's for the working world. Do you know what I mean? And I think it comes down to the individual and their inhibition to want to change that kind of thing. So some people are happy working 9 to 5 and being able to just switch off. And because being a business owner, you never switch off. Like I got to go home and work
That's yeah.
tonight. Like, you know, I'm
That's what I
always
want to get.
I was working last night till 12:30. Like my guy went to bed and he's like, "You're sending me to bed on purpose because you're wanting to do your own thing." And blah blah. I'm like, "No, work to do. I'd love to come to bed with you, but I've got to work." And, you know, so I think as a business owner, you've always got that ambition, but you can't, you know, you can't remove other people's shine. You know what I mean? You got to bring those people up with you, you know, but you never stop working. So I think it's more of a personal thing. And I think people that come from our sort of families, like we came from very vibrant, you know, families where, you know, culture was a big thing, music, getting together and
Barbecue.
pardon me, barbecue, choripan, all of
Yeah.
that, you know. So I think with our family, you know, they loved kids, I think, you know, because having a kid, it's a hard job. It is a fucking hard job. I don't even know how our parents had the energy to look after 2 kids or 3 kids or 4 kids and then throw a party and have fun with each other while we're all running around in the yard and them not worrying about us scratching ourselves or hitting our head or whatever kind of thing, you know. So I don't know how the hell our parents done it. Um, you know, but in saying that, you know, sometimes they're happy, you know, just having a family and having a normal job and not dealing with that stress. And some people come from, I think education's so crucial for anyone, because when you look at people that come from really educated families, it's a generational cycle. You know what I mean? Like, say, I don't know, you've got a family where the dad's a doctor and the mum's a lawyer. Generally, their kids might go into something similar. You know what I mean? Maybe they might not, because they've been kids that have had everything, and, you know, but a lot of the time, not really. Like, sometimes they don't, because they've got intelligent parents that have that support. Say us, we had intelligent parents, but our parents were workers. You know what I mean? They came from an upbringing where their parents migrated to Australia, and their most important thing was learning English and having enough money money in the bank to feed their family. You know what I mean? So they were hard workers, you know, and then that kind of generationally cycled to us, kind of thing, you know, where it was our choice whether or not we wanted to study to be doctors or lawyers, or, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And I think that's, you know, going back to your question about, you know, if people want us to be 9 to 5 workers or whatever, I think it just really comes down to the individual and their influences and their traditional upbringing, or whatever sort of happened in their previous generations that carried on to that generational cycle. And it takes, you know, like, say you and Gemma, like, you know, Gemma's an amazing singer.
Gemma's
She's
my
trying
sister,
to,
by the way.
oh yeah, Gemma, Michael's sister.
Yeah.
You know, she's trying to pursue her music career. You know, you're trying to pursue, you know, your podcasting as well, which I think you will both be really great in, because you have that gift of the gab. But it's what you guys choose to do with it based on what the outcome will be. You know what I mean? How you really push it and make it work. And it's the same for any of these big entrepreneurs or big successes. They were just ordinary people like you and I, and no one stopped them from becoming that. They just had this drive to get there, no matter what it took. You know what I mean? And you've seen me work, you know, you've lived when we lived together, and you'll find the same journey is, it's hard work, like, you know, and that's why not everyone makes it, because if it was easy, then everyone would be making it, you know. And I think modern technology is somewhat making it a bit easier, because we've got this Americanized system now where everyone wants to be famous or in front of a camera, or people know business a bit better now, and there's quicker and easier ways of doing business. You know what I mean? It's just about thinking outside of the box and how you execute that sort of thing. So, you know, and all these hierarchies, they love money. Money is what makes the world go round. It's a rich man's world. Yeah, my honey. It's a rich man's world. Now it's like it's a rich female's world as well. Like all these boss bitches, and you know what I mean?
Well, they've really come up in the last couple of decades.
And it's interesting because
they've really come up.
It was all just a stereotype, you know, and sadly, yeah, like, you know, it was always men that were the masculine ones, and women were the ones that stayed home and raised the kids and look after the husband. I actually think traditionally that's a bad way to live. Like, it really isn't. I think, do you know, it's kind of like, how can I say it? Like, it's kind of like me, right? The reason why I was always so ambitious was because I was doubted a lot. And I was bullied a lot. So my thing was, I always knew within myself I had more to offer. And I knew that behind the scenes I was a different person, but I was too shy to show who I really was, you know, because of all these little traumas and, you know, insecurities that other people had caused for me. You know what I mean? So I think, gosh, please don't tell me I'm losing my train of thought, because that was going somewhere really cool. I think, help me out here, Mix. Where was I going with that? The listeners know where I was going with that, because they heard what I was just saying a minute ago. Like, damn it, you're just about to say something. And now she forgot. Started thinking with my stomach for a minute. I'm like, I'm grumbly over here. Oh, that's right. About, you know, wanting to stand out, you know. So that's what, yeah. So because I was doubted so much, I wanted to stand out. And even still, I'm trying to reach that summit of success, you know. And it comes down to me, you know, and my decisions and my actions and, you know, how I live my routine to life as well. as to how my future can pan out, if that's going to work for me or not. You know what I mean? So I think it's the same with a lot of people. You know what I mean? It just comes down to, yeah, really wanting to push yourself to get there and go through obstacles that will break you to get there. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think not everyone's prepared to do that. And that's okay, you know, because sometimes it's a really lonely journey, you know, and it can make you sit there and wonder, what kind of world is this? Because you meet so many different walks of life. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's better to be in your bubble. Like, ignorance is bliss. You know what I mean? So the less you know, sometimes the better it is.
It is, because
You enjoy life better.
It is, because it's a safer option. I feel like that the more that you start to learn about the world, the more that you can obviously see the brilliance behind everything that's in the world. But also at the
Absolutely.
same time, by learning a lot more about the world, you also start to realize how messed up things really are.
Yeah, and you can
It's
use it to
scary.
your benefit. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Do you know,
Yeah.
I always say, I'm like, I don't know if I should bring this topic up because it is a touchy subject. I was told never to talk about politics or religion growing up. And back then I was like, what does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. I had no idea. I was like 17 at the time. But now I know. I'm agnostic. I believe in God. I do. And I believe that in bad as well. Sometimes I wonder, especially seeing a lot on my journey and being exposed to a lot as well. You know, because I didn't mention this, but, you know, I moved out of home when I was 17. So at that age, I didn't have money. I didn't have guidance. I had no knowledge. I was just a blank canvas trying to figure out how to live in this world, kind of thing. So, you know, for that, it's kind of like, you know, you kind of, I don't know, you kind of, it changes you in ways. And
What would you say that are the biggest sacrifices that you like, your biggest sacrifices that you've had to deal with now upon starting Rent a Temp?
well, do you know the biggest one is losing love, and that's where I
That's deep.
realized as well that money and success sometimes isn't everything, because my company is not even where I want it to be yet, and it's gonna happen. You know, being in technology and app development, you know, there's a lot to it, especially with coding structures and all of that as well. That it's kind of one of those things where um, I met a lot of really nice guys on the way, friendships on the way that I kind of had to push to the side, not because I wanted to, but because I had to, because that was what my focus was and that's what my drive was. And anything that came along the way of that, it kind of felt like a distraction at the time. So I wouldn't really pay that much attention to it because my focus was always becoming successful and becoming something, and, you know, proving my dad wrong and proving everyone wrong, because I used to be, you know,
Proving Daniel wrong.
Daniel wrong, all of them fucking wrong. Yeah, because, and that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
just to,
That was the
yeah, that was the
ammunition
ammunition.
to
Was
just
it
go,
all came from doubt? Yeah, from knowing within me, no, I believe in me. You guys might be doubting me, but let me show you, kind of thing. And, you know, and it was, you know, and it's like, you can maybe relate to me with this. Like, I was always the funny guy. You know, I love to make people laugh. And it's like, say, even Jim Carrey, you know, people don't think
Jim Carrey's
that
a
the
good
funny
example.
person is sometimes the most intelligent person in the room, because they think, oh, they're just too busy, you know, joking. They got so much to say. Listen to this idiot. You know what I mean? And that's not the case. You know what I mean? Like, and that's really sad that people think that, and they use that. They somewhat have an upper hand over the happy guy and the funny guy, you know?
I truly do resonate what you're saying right now, and the reason why is because I think even for myself too, like I was also the funny guy, just like how you said, for quite a
Yeah.
long time. And I think now, only in the last couple of years, I realized that in order for people to want to take me more seriously, I had to have more of a serious edge
But isn't that
in a way.
sad though? Because realistically, I feel like
Mhm.
it was a sparkle that you had, or both of us had in us. So it's like, you know, the little dinosaur,
Yeah.
you know, It's
Don't lose your dinosaur.
exactly.
Yeah, that's from Step
Step
Brothers.
Brothers,
Yeah.
and and I think sometimes it's an insecurity of others, because they're like, well, why am I not happy? It's why don't I have the confidence to be like that, and so people, they kind of make you feel
Yeah.
inferior of yourself, but realistically,
Mhm.
they're the inferior, insecure one. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a rude way, but like say you and I, right? I don't judge people because, we've all got a story. I don't have a clean backyard. You know what I mean? So I've got
Mhm.
no one to judge,
Mhm.
So when I see someone that might be different or eccentric or funny, I love that. I'm like, never change, because I was once that person, and, having the wrong people around me change that, and they bring you down to their level, and that's not okay, because, you know, and that even comes down to celebrities, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
what we were saying before, they've got this shine and sparkle about them, but then they'll have people that will try to break them along the way. And sadly enough, it does that sometimes to people,
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, so losing that sparkle, it's just, that's something I say to a lot of young people now.
Mhm.
I'm like, don't let anyone's perception of you change your perception of yourself,
Mhm.
because just because, someone might not be capable, or they might not see your vision, it's not because it's not going to work. It's because they're not capable of fulfilling that
Mhm.
vision. So to them, it doesn't resonate to them. They're like, well, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? But something that might not work for this person might work for that
I think
person,
what you also have to say to them as
So
well is that they need to see themselves in a different lens.
in a different light. Yeah. And just
Yeah.
believe in yourself, like and I still have my little insecurities. Like, everyone does, I love going to the gym, because not just because it makes my mind feel great, but because there's always that side of me where I was once that fat kid that was bullied, that didn't fit in, and that had that doubt, and that kid still lives in me. And that's why I don't like to judge people, because I know what it feels like to be judged. But it's more so, um, yeah, trying to be who who you are. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And
You remember I brought that up with you. You remember long time ago we were living together, and I remember that you were dealing with you dealing with something. It was really hard for you. I remember saying, do I still see you as that person from back then, but all these other people that you've met, they
yeah,
don't
they've
know.
changed you.
They
Yeah, you're
but
right.
no, but not only that, they don't even know who that is.
Yeah,
But I saw who that was, and
exactly.
I remember saying to you that the whatever, like it was other relationships that were taking that away from you, or also at the same time it was the business that was taking away that love that you're talking about too. Is that it was molding you into this different person, and at the same time, like I was sitting there like, I want you to go all the way with this thing, but I was worried about seeing that the sparkle was being taken
Yeah, well,
away.
you saw a lot of people take advantage of me and use
I saw, I
me.
saw, I saw these things. Yeah, I saw these things happen, and then I look at myself as well. It's like, in order for myself to be treated more seriously, do I have to take away that? Do I have to subtract that funny
Do you
side
know
to me?
what you
Yeah,
do? You subtract the
yeah.
people around you that are
That's the
making you
that's the
feel that
move you
way.
make. You make
That's what
that
you
move. Yeah,
do. You don't
yeah.
subtract who you are,
Mhm.
because you've got a gift, and everyone's born with a gift. It's just
Every single person has a
finding what your
freaking gift,
gift
man.
is
Everyone is. Yeah.
and doing something with it, And it's sad because, I think it's the fear of the unknown. And it's
Mhm.
also the stigma, or one of the main stigmas around it is, yeah, the vulnerability, putting yourself out there
Yeah.
and people being judged. Like some people just don't want to be judged. And that's okay, because maybe they might have felt once upon a time judged, where it made them feel really bad. And they're like, oh, I never want to feel that again. You know what I mean? And it was even like, me, I'm a single mom, as you know.
Mhm.
And, I always have this, it's hard running a company, and I'm starting another business at the moment, and then having my daughter who's 15 months old, and not having any real help or support. Um, that made me realize a lot as well, because you start to see that you're all alone in many aspects, and you find ways to make things work. You know what I mean? Because there was things that happened prior to me having a child alone and seeing how hard it is to have a kid, it kind of made me really see things from a different light, between my daughter's dad, um, seeing the support that I had, which wasn't that much, and just kind of, just seeing that it's you and yourself, you know what I mean? And for those that are there for you, it's just them and themselves as well. So, it's hard to put that pressure on anyone, to come and save you. So you can only really save yourself, So,
It's really good that you do say that too, because I feel like what I really want to do with this is I really want to have people on that have dealt with something and now they're doing something brilliant.
yeah. And
They're doing something brilliant, yeah.
And I think for every person that you have on here or that you've had on here, they've all experienced some sort of adversity. And it's funny because it's usually the ones that you think that are okay that aren't okay. And they're the ones that have done it. You know what I mean? Like the ones that seem really strong that are doing something for themselves. They're the ones that battle the darkest demons sometimes. You know what I mean? And they're the ones that people admire, but they can also be very jealous of, but they don't realize how much that person's dealing with or their struggle or why they're doing it. Or, like another thing of mine was, I had a lot of moving out of home really young. I was homeless at one point, I was living on different couches. I didn't know where home was. I really didn't. And, coming from an upbringing where there was no stability, my parents were constantly moving and, they were constantly arguing. And, I just felt like this little kid that was all alone that had no real guidance because my parents were so caught up
In their own
in their
thing,
own
yeah.
crap. And it wasn't even that, like they wanted to probably, and me being a parent, I can understand they wanted to give us their best life, but there was two of them, so that's where, as you know, I don't have a very good relationship with my mum. There's that resentment there because, my dad, he done a lot, and to give us the best life. And I think that's where there's that old school dynamic, and people don't see the pressure dads even have on them, to keep their family afloat and to keep a roof over their family's head and, and all of that. But then you've got the teamwork, the power couples, where they do it together, kind of thing. But I think not having that guidance because my parents were dealing with their own stuff led me on many different journeys and adversities alone where it made me not want to ever fail, like I had times where I didn't even have money to eat, so for me, I was like, I used to pick one thing out of each roommate's stuff just to be able to eat, so, or I used to have the same shoes, like, I didn't have money to buy proper shoes. When I started my dental nursing, I was really lucky because I had no money, so everything was funded. And that's what that was one of the best things that I got into, and that's why I believe that there's a God out there because there was these paths that I was ending up on, like that I could get real dark if you want me to talk about it, maybe on another episode. But there was a lot of things that happened along the way that changed me as a person and my perception and not wanting to fail. And then obviously having a kid and being a single mom, like I can't fail because, obviously her dad's not in the picture. So it's one of those things where I've got to elevate myself and give her that best life because I don't want her to be like, oh, I came from a single mom family where, my mum struggled a lot. And I want her to be like, my mum owned it. My mum gave me everything. My mum was superwoman. My mum gave me the best of everything, and I didn't see her struggle. Because one day if I was to die and my kid's just by herself, I don't want her to crumble. Like I want her to have that strength to keep going because she saw me keep going. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, that's what you'll find with a lot of entrepreneurs and business people and people, celebrities, lots of people that have aspired to
They're
make
built with
something really
steel.
big of themselves. And it's not even that. They've had no choice but to be built with steel. They've had, I think, it's like MK Ultra stuff, where you're like traumatized so much from things, you become desensitized. You just autopilot. You just keep going. You know what I mean? And it's hard, you have your setbacks, and it's interesting as well, because I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs are big people like, why do I make my life so hard? Why do I just have this fire in me to make it? You know what I mean? Like, why can't I just meet someone, settle down, have a normal life? But usually it's because they've had some sort of adversity or setback or something that's made them really want to shine. You know what I mean? So, and so I think that's such a big thing for a lot of people that are trying to make it in this world. Or, it's like you see people come from overseas, from poverty, and
It's hard
really
for them when they come
mind
here.
baffling. Yeah, it's hard for them, but they don't stop. They just keep on going, because they know within themselves they can do it, and I think that's what a lot of people, not a lot of people, I think people lack it because they're the fear of the unknown, sort of thing. So, yeah.
I think we're coming towards the end of this, but I want to ask you one final question because I feel like it might take some time for you to answer it.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about my tangents, guys.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
We'll come to episode 2.
Yeah. There'll be another one soon.
To be continued. Yeah.
But I want to ask you one more question first, and then we'll end.
Yeah.
If you could go into a time machine
and
you could go back in time, let's say, because you're 29.
No, I'm 31 this year.
Oh, you're 31. Sorry, that's right.
I wish 29. Okay. I'll take it.
So,
I'll take it. I'm 29. Leave it at that.
We'll leave it at 29, right?
Make it 19.
Yeah. Let's say you could go back in time in a time machine 15 years before. So we're looking at 14 years old. Mish, when you were in the midst of the whole anorexia phase. You go back in that time machine and you go back to see yourself there in Brisbane as you're dealing with all that. What advice would you offer to yourself if you come into contact with yourself and you talk to yourself?
I think the biggest advice I would give is not to give a shit about other people's opinions. I think that's the biggest, like, who cares what people think? Like, all those people needed to look at themselves, really. Like, you know what I mean? I think that's the biggest. I know that sounds a bit abrupt for me to say, because my problem was I cared too much what people thought, and that was why I went into all those little dark spaces, because I was always trying to fit in. I was always trying to be someone I wasn't to fit in. Yeah, and I think that would be the biggest thing, that even for any young person, is to just do you, don't worry about what people think, and just, in terms of changing my experiences, some things I would change, because I do believe, certain things can cause trauma, but I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't go through all those things, and sometimes, I do sit there and I think, like, what would life have been like? But I think there's no future in the past. There's only lessons to be learnt to make a better future, for yourself and for your future self. And I think being a mother now as well is to teach my daughter not to make all the mistakes I made, to actually guide her and be there, because I didn't have that guidance. I didn't have any of that. So I think to really be someone that my daughter can come to, talk to, and so I wouldn't really change much, other than just not to worry about what other people's thoughts were. That's the biggest thing.
So you would let it just play out the way that it was going to go?
Yeah.
I do understand why you do say that, though, because then because then that version of you, right? So then that timeline would change if you said something different.
Yeah. Well, it's like the movie The Butterfly Effect, and I love that movie.
You would turn in, you would be, who knows, like, you could have been a person that, let's say, like, you came out of anorexia way earlier and you got into fitness, but let's say you could have maybe not become as determined as to what you are today. So then
that's what I was going to say.
So then a different version of yourself would have been made in that timeline.
And that's what I mean. I think I wouldn't be as strong as I am today if those things didn't happen. Like, I think I resent my parents a lot. Sorry to say that, because I think parenting is such a big thing. It's such a big thing to
And
be a
you're
good
really learning
parent.
that now, like
Yeah.
it's
And
the
to kudos to any parent out there that even if your kid's 52 years of age, they've always got a home with you, because I think parenting is paramount. And kids, especially teenagers, need that guidance. And if you don't have that guidance, proper guidance, then I think it can really cause a lot of effect, you know. So I think, but then in saying that, you know, they're people at the end of the day. They were dealing with their own personal things, you know, and sometimes as a parent, like you do, you have moments where you just want to run away and just be in a room and just leave me
yeah,
alone,
leave me alone.
please,
Yeah.
you know. So I understand that as well. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. So yeah, that's what I'd probably change. It's not caring what people thought.
Well, that's a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful answer as well. It's a very beautiful answer that you're given, and I just want to say to wrap things up as well that um, there's new things that I think I've learnt about you today in all the time, even that we were living together as well for the 7 months and prior to that too. There's new things that I've seen from you today, and there's one thing I really want to point out.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're a good friend of mine, I just really want to point out that I am so fucking proud of you.
Thank
All of the
you.
things that you've had to overcome, because there's other things I know too. All the things you've had to overcome from those beginning, you know, cyberbullying things to even whatever happened before that, the bulimia and anorexia, you know, living that high life, the party stage, and then coming out of that. And then I think you're getting into fitness. And then after that, you know, there was relationships that went all over the place, and now becoming a single mum and still giving it a go. I'm really proud of you for what you've done and where you're now going with this business. And I don't want you to ever stop what you're doing,
Thanks,
because I
Mischa.
think that there's something great waiting on the other side of that. So don't stop that.
Thank you.
Just remember who that I always remember, you know, that person from the past. Because when I see you, I see that person from the past. But I know that all of the other people that know you that I've come into contact with, they don't see that person. They don't know who that is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I
And
know
that's why you're so
exactly who,
special to me.
I know who that is.
Mm.
Because I used to hang around that person at the barbecues all the time back in the past, having a laugh, having a big dance, all the
The
family,
good old
the
days.
good old
The
days.
good
Yeah,
old days.
the past, it's a beautiful
Yeah.
place sometimes. But we're gonna wrap up. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on here today. It was an absolute
Okay, my
pleasure.
love. I can't wait for the
And
next one.
yeah, there'll be another one. We'll probably meet up soon to do another one. But
Yeah,
yeah, oh yeah,
absolutely.
the Rent a Temp app.
Oh, yeah. If you're looking for staff or short-term work, download the Rent a Temp app via the App Store and Google Play.
Yeah, that's it.
Arriba!
And you're gonna get yourself some work, and yeah,
You can alternate between industries, connect with who you want and don't want to connect with within your local radius, and earn above award wage.
That's where it's at.
Exactly. So the whole purpose of that, I wish I did speak about that actually, is to create recognition in the workplace, because a lot of workplaces lack that. So that's the irony behind Rent a Temp as well.
Yeah. Beautiful,
Be
right?
your own boss and shine bright at what you do.
That's it.
That's it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so
Thanks,
much for the
Miggy.
chat, Mish. All good? No, all good. Anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, darling.